Hi, I'm Valentina Vee and welcome to 4-Minute Film School. Come along with me as I show you how I shot this indie music video. Let's go. Today we are at the studio in downtown Los Angeles, shooting a video for our friend Kate's song Meet Me in Los Angeles. Appropriate, right? We are trying to use everything in the studio to our advantage, including the grittiness and texture of the walls, the props that are already there, and coming up with interesting techniques, interesting looks to augment the song and make it really pop. So let's go to our first setup and check it out. In this first setup, I wanted to find an interesting background. It was either white walls or brick walls. Well, why not split the difference and shoot into a corner? To add a little bit more dimension to that, we found all of these gold chairs and started stacking them up at the back. Not only would that add to the production value of the shoot, but we could shine a light directly up at it, casting interesting shadows onto the walls. To contrast the very straight angles of the chairs and the yellow color of them, we brought in this couch. It's very organic, it is pink, it is the complete opposite. So it creates a visual interest. I also put the camera as low as possible to the ground on a 50mm anamorphic lens. This would compress the background and make it look like there are way more chairs than there actually are. I wanted to get some nice toppy light so that her hair would be illuminated. The problem is, how do you get a light behind her? Well, you could place a light stand behind her, but there wasn't enough room with the ceiling in order to make it soft. So instead, I took two poster boards that were white, you can get at a craft store, and I taped them up onto the lighting fixtures there. I didn't want to turn on the actual lighting fixtures because not only are they not the right intensity, but they're also not the right color temperature. I took a 300D2 with a spotlight mount and I closed up the cutters so that the rectangle of light will fall directly on to those bounces. That way, the light doesn't spill out onto the ceiling and everywhere. It is concentrated exactly where I want it to be. Now that light went up into the bounces and then down onto our subject, highlighting her hair and the couch in a very lovely way with nice shadow fall off. Next, I wanted to add a light onto her face that would not fall onto the background. So we took a 300X and added a Fresnel lens on it. The Fresnel lens let me concentrate that light into a narrower beam angle so that it wouldn't just be a giant spot all over the couch. On top of that, we added some cinefoil, or otherwise known as black wrap, to create a makeshift snoot to close up that light even more so it only fell directly where she was sitting and a little bit around her legs. We put that light up high so that it wouldn't fall directly onto her, making her face very flat. It would be a more toppy light, giving her dimension underneath her chin. I put all three lights on the same Bluetooth network so that I could control them with the Sidus Link app on my iPad. That way I could look at the actual image, check out the false color information on the monitor, and make adjustments. We also used a light meter to take incident readings of the intensities of all of the lights. When you set your ISO and your shutter speed on your light meter, you can take f-stop readings when you point it at each of the lights inside of the location. This allows us to really know our contrast ratio. Because our background light, the one that was on the chairs, was one stop above our key light on her face, that is a 2-to-1 contrast ratio. That's exactly what I wanted because I set the background light on a faulty bulb setting. So it was either on or it was off throughout her performance take. I wanted both the off and on positions to be dramatic, yet not detract from the key light. So when it's on, it's a little bit brighter than the key light, and when it's off, the key light isn't so overpowering that it takes over the entire image. We also played with different contrast ratios, like this is a 1-to-1 contrast ratio. And you can see it's pretty evenly lit, but it's not as dramatic. I also wanted to play with contrasting colors in this setup, which is why I set the foreground light to a very tungsten color temperature and all the other lights to pure daylight. I even adjusted the green tint on my camera so that it could match the green in this next setup. It's easy to shoot something in front of a white seamless, but it's not very interesting. So for this shot, we moved back. So you could still see the seamless, but you could also see everything else in the shot, like the mannequins and the wardrobe rack. It creates just a more dynamic look. To match the previous shot that had those yellow chairs with that green tint in the back, we doubled up some green party gel on top of a 300D2 with barn doors and closed up those barn doors so that they would only fall on the seamless in the back. That would provide a nice pop of light directly behind our subject, but wouldn't get into the background, keeping that in shadow, keeping the vibe a little bit moodier. I also didn't want the green in the back to be too bright, because if it was too bright, it would just seem almost neon because this party gel wasn't a very dark gel. So I kept that light a little bit low so that we could really focus on the face and the brightness of that key light. Continuing with the moody vibe, I didn't want a nice bright key light like the one that I have in front of me right now. I wanted it off to the side. So I had our talent sit at an angle towards the key light, but still look at the camera. This way we got some nice fall off onto her cheek, but she wasn't entirely illuminated. I did want to bring a little bit of fill, not only to brighten up the other side of her face slightly, but also in order to have something in her eye as a catch light. A catch light doesn't always have to be a light, it could also be a bounce, just like this white side of a 5-in-1 fold-out reflector. I also kept that key light a little bit warmer to match the warmth of the key light in the previous shot. That warmth also works really well with her hair, and having that orange and green texture is a little bit different than having the orange and blue texture that you usually see. It's a little bit less common, therefore more unique. I wanted the contrast ratio on her face to be severe, from the key light in the back to the fill light in the front. So whereas most of your pleasing contrast ratios are something in a 3-to-1 ratio, in this case, it was a 5-to-1 ratio. Okay, let's take a look at both of these setups with the song. You don't need a fancy camera setup to shoot a music video. You can shoot an entire music video on your iPhone. In fact, I set my iPhone on that same tripod, popped a little moment lens on there, and got the same shot. The iPhone doesn't really pick up that fill light at all, so I had to adjust the lights a little bit, increase the ISO there, take the lights down to match it up a little and have more ambient light fill in on the side. I hope you enjoyed this talk-through of me shooting this music video. If you did, do let me know in the comments. I would love to know. I also want to know, what was your first music video experience like? And if you haven't shot one, what kind of music video would you like to shoot? Let me know for a chance to win an M9 Lite. I'm Valentina Vee. My social media links are down below. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like and subscribe to Aputure's channel. Until next time, happy shooting.